What's going on, YouTube, social media world? It's your boy AnonymousBased, and I'm biggity back with a new reaction video. This time I'm here with something brand new from It's Complicated. But before we get into that, if you're new to the channel, go ahead and give this video a like, share it with a couple of your friends. Make sure you follow me on all my social media sites, and if you got something specific, go ahead and drop it in that comment section. So we are here with something brand new from It's Complicated, man. Shout out to you, brother. And the name of this video is called Does Shaming Really Work? Alright, let's go ahead and get into it. And we're going to see what this one's about.
What is shame and where does it come from?
I believe shame can be different for a lot of people, but I think it stems from insecurity, and it also stems from people's values and how they were raised. That's where I think shame comes from.
What is the difference between shame and guilt?
I would say, like, feeling guilty, I would say you know you did something wrong. And then shame is like you feel, actually, I feel like they're kind of similar. It's hard to explain the difference to me.
Why are there people who think we need to bring back shame?
I feel like there are a lot of people who do and say things that they shouldn't, and they don't have shame for it, you know, and then they get themselves into things that they shouldn't. Like, I hear a lot of people say bring back bullying, all that type of stuff. I understand that.
I think people want to bring back shame because they think certain narratives or ideas or expressions of ideas don't fit what they believe.
The people that want to bring back quote-unquote shame, they don't see it as shame. They see it as something that aligns with their values, but not everyone else's, and they think they're right, so that's what I think.
They don't like other people's narratives or expressions of ideas that they do, and shame is a way to kind of make them feel bad for it, make them feel guilty of it, and get them to change or not express those narratives to keep a world shaped more around what they believe and what they enjoy seeing.
Is there anything that deserves to be shamed?
I don't think so.
This is how to get in shape fast.
The best way to boost your metabolic rate and get in shape is not keto, it's not paleo.
As long as you're not doing something obviously illegal or like murder, stuff like that, I don't think anything should be shamed. I think people should do what they want.
If something makes you happy and it doesn't hurt anybody else, it's whatever. And some people, that could be argued with religions, look down on other religions or other cultures or beliefs in a similar sense. But
see, what's interesting about that idea is, like, I hear that a lot. Oh, you know, if it doesn't hurt anybody and this and that, you know, I don't see a problem with it. Or if it's not illegal, you know, it should be whatever, and, you know, people shouldn't get judged, right? But deep down in the back of our subconscious mind, we know about certain things that should and should not be done, or you know, should be partaken in society. You know what I mean? So it's like, just because it doesn't hurt somebody doesn't mean that it's right. You see what I'm saying? And then a lot of things that are right, they may hurt you from a feelings perspective, but if you think about the grand scheme of things, is it really hurting you, or is it really getting you to think about something that could potentially make you better versus just continuing down the dark path and having that same mindset of, well, I ain't hurting nobody, so I'm just going to do whatever. Very toxic, very bad for society. We do need to have some degree of shaming and some degree of accountability.
But more so like, you know, I don't like that. I'm never going to raise my kids. I'm going to shelter them from it. And I'm going to shame them if they do that, or shame other people in front of them to kind of build that so they don't ever do it and they shame people.
What is the purpose of shaming people in a multicultural country full of religious freedom?
I believe there's no point, because if there are multiple people from multiple different backgrounds, shaming somebody not knowing where they come from or how they were raised is kind of pointless.
I think it's negative. There's no point in doing it. And some people want to uphold their views or their values and don't like others. If everyone could stay in their own lane and not shame everyone, it would be great. But that can't happen just because the way we were raised makes us have a negative outlook on certain things regardless.
At what point does shaming infringe on the freedom of others?
When it becomes harassment, when it's assault, when it's just you're being bombarded by it. And of course, some cultures, not like myself, of course, experience it a lot more for different reasons, for their skin color, just being shamed for what they believe in, if they like a weird anime or art form.
When it impacts their decision making. So if the pressure of shame from society causes you to do or be something outside of what you want to be in your free will.
Didn't gay people have to fight to not be shamed by religious people?
Absolutely they did. And it's still prevalent now, but it's far less than it used to be. And I think they're far more accepted by religions and religious communities, at least here in my world. Of course, you're never going to fight a battle like that, shame. You're never going to take over the world with it, just because people are so rooted in their values and their ways. And it's not easy to break out of that.
See, it's funny that they bring that up because the same group of people that had to fight to be accepted and recognized are the same group of people that are forcing what they want down other people's throats. Nowadays, in 2025, in the 21st century, the same thing that they were against, which is the shaming, is the same thing that they're doing now when you don't accept what they want and how they think you should live. See, when you have too much freedom, that's what happens. You let the small group have the biggest voice, and then they use their voice to shame other people and make you look like the weird one because you don't accept the lifestyle that they have. The irony. The irony.
So they did have to fight, and I think they will fight, and every other group, small or large, is going to always have to fight to not be shamed. And I think that's what gives them a sense of community.
How can a father stop his daughter from having an OnlyFans any more than he can stop his son from being gay?
Being gay is not a choice.
That one's actually simple.
Stop the
If you stop masturbation, you stop being gay.
I mean, obviously, with OnlyFans, you have to be a certain age.
Stop
Once
the
you
cap.
get that certain age, it would be wise, I think, to take some opinions from your father, because that is your father and his opinion does deserve a little bit of respect. But at the end of the day, it is your choice.
Who are the bigger slut shamers, men or women?
I would say men are the bigger slut shamers
Nope.
versus women.
Men are probably
Stop
the biggest
the
slut
cap.
shamers because a dude can sleep with 20 girls and he's a stud, but a girl doesn't, she's a hoe.
Men love sluts, women hate them.
There you go.
Personally, I'm old-fashioned. I want a girl who's pure, so someone who hasn't been around the whole block. I feel like, especially in nowadays and age with the way the world is going with OnlyFans and all that,
Exactly.
I don't want my kid to grow up in a way where they go to school and their mom is slut-shamed because she's naked all over the internet. And I feel like that comes with the connotation of a body count.
Why are there men who will shame women for having high body counts while also complaining about how hard it is to get laid?
Right? I feel like men don't know what they want. I feel like at one moment they act like they want
Stop
a
the
good girl,
cap.
but in reality they want a bad girl. Even if they get a good girl, they're still gonna they'll make the good girl feel like stay good, but then they'll still be giving the bad girls like all this attention. So it makes the good girl feel like.
Here we go. Once again, you have people that conflate relationship attention from sexual attention. When it comes to guys, we're very, very simple. We put women into two categories. Ones that we'll just have fun with versus ones that we can see as wifey. It's really that simple. The ones that we view as fun, that's all it is. The ones we view for relationships, they get a different type of treatment and respect. It's really that simple.
She should just be bad.
How does it make sense to shame men for being incels at the same time we're shaming women for high body counts?
I mean, it really don't make sense because it's the same thing. It's just different genders, but it's the same thing. Like,
Incels attack women in a sense of you're a slut, you're this, you're that. And I think it comes from them not being able to attain a woman in the sense that they want to attain them.
most incels don't really get to deal with women because they don't have that confidence to approach them and deal with them in the way they want to. But with a woman with a high body count, it's a different stance because her value comes from that. Her value comes from her being able to give her vajayjay away And if she's giving it out too much, shit, you don't want to drive a car that got 100,000 miles on it, 200,000 miles on it, and it's a Lambo. Shit, I'd rather get the brand new Lambo straight off the lot with no miles instead of the one that's used.
Why has the entire red pill become about slut shaming and beta male shaming?
Why has it become that? I would say that's because those are the most polarizing topics, and it's, the easiest way to sort of,
I can agree with
I'd
that.
say we live in an engagement world.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that are the easiest to get engagement of for the topics that people feel very strongly one side
I
or
can
another,
see
to
that.
where
Yeah, I can
they
see
love
that.
to talk about it, to where that's now what the red pill conversation has become about, when in actuality it's a lot more than that.
A lot of these podcasts now have turned to that. There were good podcasts back there that were quote unquote alpha male. I think a lot of them do have good values, but I think now it's become kind of a trend to downplay people and kind of bully people, so they use it to their advantage.
Why are they more focused on shaming men and women back into traditional roles versus liberating men from being traditional?
Why do they want to do that? That's a great question. I would say that
Because men want women to do all the stuff that we used to do a long time ago, and they need to do the stuff that they used to do a long time ago.
But are women willing to do the things that they used to do a long time ago?
Not a lot of these.
There you go.
So then why should men be held to a traditional standard?
I guess they should not.
Yeah,
really go back.
exactly.
They shouldn't.
I would say I believe it's because it's most beneficial for them to have us in those roles, as opposed to having us, in the words of being liberated. I'd say that that's not what they want. So they want to keep us in a traditional role, feeling shame, things of that nature.
Well, traditional roles are probably better for men and women, because it seems like women have fallen apart. They try to be the men, and it's not working out.
What is the point of shaming people who clearly have no shame?
There's honestly no point. If they enjoy what they're doing and they're not harming anybody, there's no point.
What value does shame have if there's no consequences?
Oh.
Again, I think that's just an issue with people's values.
Why has religion been imposed as part of the men's masculinity movement, and what's the connection?
I think religion is a man-made social construct, which, helps with the patriarchy and whatnot. A lot of the men are put higher.
I think that's definitely pushed by the religious people to make because there are things as, what are they called? Like men's roles and women's roles. And for religion, at least, the man's role is to provide care and protect, and a woman's role is to cook, clean, and do the other stuff, take care of the kids. And I think that has a big part in religion, so I think they use that to kind of get people on their side.
You're automatically more masculine if you're in Christ and you give your life.
Janet, when's the last time you had a vegetable?
Your life, and you have Christ in you, so it's a different thing. But when it comes to religion, I'm not a religious person, so I wouldn't know.
You can take a whole bunch of different religions, and the man is elevated, like, and superior to the woman. Like you take Islam or several other religions, Hinduism, they elevate the man above the woman a lot of times. You'll notice that the women walk in the back for different reasons of different cultures.
Okay.
But it shouldn't be like that, according to Bible standards.
Jesus is the head of the house or the head of the church, and then the man is the head of the house and the woman's below him. But as far as that goes, the message can be misconstrued due to how men portray it, because they want to be dictative, or they want to make it seem like they want power over the woman, when really it's a respect thing. You don't want your woman to disrespect you in the way that she moves. If you don't agree with something, you want her to respect your wishes or the way you think, just like she would want you to do the same. It's all based on respect.
Do you believe in the God, man, woman, child hierarchy? And if so, should everyone be held to that standard when we're trying to promote gender equality?
Yes, but gender equality means male and female.
Men that lead the family and kept the family together and focused on God and stuff like that. I didn't feel like that was a bad idea. I feel like now that we don't have that, this is the society that we have. I mean, a lot of fatherless people, a lot of people just not knowing the way. I feel like men are it's a beautiful thing to be masculine, but in this society it's not cool anymore.
So why are all men being blamed for the patriarchal structure that religion is trying to push?
I think that's an unfair blame on men, because I think the patriarchal society caused by or created by religion goes way deeper than just men.
We shouldn't be blamed by that. That is a hypocritical stance by the religious, sects, due to the fact that they have an agenda to push too, because they're trying to control the masses through the things that they teach. So even if to a certain extent that is true as far as it can help the family environment in a way, it shouldn't be the precipice for what we want to stand on, due to the fact that it's coming from organizations and institutions that don't have our best interests at heart.
Trying to utilize traditional foundations against us, a lot of people, I won't say everyone, but a lot of people grow up with a religious background, so it's easy to kind of use that source as a shaming point, I would say.
Doesn't that give them a license to condemn masculinity if it doesn't fit their definition?
100%, absolutely.
Why don't we shame gays for not being masculine enough, the same way we shame straight men for not being masculine enough?
I would say because it's an assumption that gay men are more feminine, which in reality is not true. Sexuality and masculinity or femininity are completely unrelated, but we feel like it's okay to assume that gay men are naturally more feminine, when that's not the case, but we feel comfortable making those assumptions.
I think that nobody should be shamed in who they are. I don't think that straight men who act more feminine need to be shamed, and I don't think that gay men who act very feminine or very masculine need to be shamed either.
Who is more controlled by shame, men or women, and why?
Ooh, who is more controlled by shame? I feel like women, definitely.
No.
Women are more controlled by shame because, like if you live or dress a certain type of way, it's kind of like, bro, like you deserve it, or you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't. Yeah, but men kind of,
There's a whole bunch of cap going on with this answer because we live in a society where women think that they can do whatever they want, and anyone who questions anything they do immediately gets labeled insecure, toxically masculine, small d energy, incel, and everything else. So the men are the one that actually get shamed for even trying to shame women. Whereas on the female side, they shame men for not being tall enough, not making enough money, not looking good enough, not having the lifestyle, not having certain things that they find value in. So it's like the guys are getting shamed 2 and 3-fold, whereas like the women, they want to have free reign with no type of rules. They're the ones that are quote unquote liberated, but then the guys are still held to the same traditional standard that was around since the beginning of the time. So with all due respect, this lady's lying.
Stop the cap.
that's what a part of being a man. Like, that's what they do. They get a pass. When I actually think that men have a lot to do with the way that women are now, but they'll complain, oh, you're like this and you're like that, or you're a whore or whatever. But you kind of wanted that whore. You wanted a whore. You know what I'm saying? Like, you wanted me to be a freak. You wanted me to be wild. You wanted me to be a slut. But like, I'm getting.
The best way to sum up how simple men think when it comes to stuff like this is very simple. Lady in the streets, freak in the sheets. Meaning, we want you to conduct yourself like a lady and polite in public, but behind closed doors, that's when it goes down. But now the women are flipping it to where they're like, well, they don't want to be ladies at all. They just want to be freaks all the time. And then the men are like, whoa, you could do that, but I'm not going to commit to you. And then they get mad when the men don't want to commit to that, because you're putting all your personal private business out on Front Street and want us to respect it. And that's not how it goes. You see what I'm saying?
Ashamed for it. I don't even get it, but whatever.
Don't women often wear shame as a badge of honor?
I feel like it depends on the woman.
See?
I don't like feeling shameful. I like to be free of shame if possible. So,
bro, I literally just said that.
I feel like all of us are not the same. We got a whole lot of going on in this world, so.
Isn't there more weight attached to shaming men because they haven't been liberated like women?
Bro, I just said that.
More weight attached to shaming men.
See?
I would agree with that. I feel like men get shamed a lot. And women
So
are
you
kinda
just
like,
contradicted
oh,
yourself.
Yep, there's no shame in it. Let's be proud about our life.
Wow.
It's like, damn, yeah, it's true.
Fuck
Guys
nigga
do
to
get
the end,
shamed a
tell
lot
a
more
friend,
than
bitch.
women do.
Isn't there more weight attached to shaming men because they haven't been liberated like women?
No, men have been liberated longer than women have.
No, we haven't.
Didn't we have a women's
the
liberation
cap.
movement? We haven't had a
Yeah.
men's liberation movement.
You guys have had men have that.
Can you explain that? What do you mean?
Well,
What's the name of it?
hundreds of years ago, we were not able to get jobs, we couldn't wear
Stop
certain
the
things,
cap.
so we had to have that act of liberation to then be where
Stop
we
the
are
cap.
now. Men already had that.
Aren't men typically held to a traditional standard that we have to be protectors and providers in relationships?
Yes.
That's not liberated. That means we are held to a standard. Women,
True.
You can tell a man he's not a real man if he doesn't protect and provide, but you can't tell a woman she's not a real woman if she doesn't cook and clean.
Exactly.
See the difference?
I feel like it still happens.
What do you mean?
I mean, there's shame from everywhere on both ways. Like, you can shame a man for not being a provider and protector, but you can also shame a woman for not cooking and cleaning. It happens on both ends, I'd say.
Well, yeah, but women. Okay, but there's no real consequences for it, though. That's the thing. Because a woman could be a career woman or a stay-at-home mom, and it's acceptable either way. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's socially acceptable. But it's not socially acceptable. A man is seen as less of a man if he doesn't protect and provide. You see what I mean?
Thank you. Thank you.
Men didn't need to be
Stupid.
liberated. They were always the ones in control.
Well, then why are men more held to a traditional standard than women?
Thank you.
Because toxic masculinity. I think a lot of men hold each other to a high.
What did I say earlier when I brought up the example of men trying to shame and then the backlash they get? She literally just used one of the shaming tactics by bringing up toxic masculinity to shame a guy for trying to enforce a traditional standard. Thank you.
Higher standard of that type of traditional role than women do to themselves.
I would say men are more controlled by shame because, to your point, women sometimes own their shame and maybe wear it as a badge of honor, kind of take back the negative feelings of shame. Whereas men, I don't think we've gotten there yet to where with shame we truly feel that. So I think we're more controlled by that.
Why is shaming women seen as hate, but shaming men is seen as motivation?
Like I said, I think women are pretty emotional creatures. That's not to bag on women. It's a thing.
It's
women
true.
react more emotionally and men are more logical. Not saying that women are any less and smarter, but yeah, that's why.
Why would it be any more acceptable for one religion to impose their morality over another?
I simply don't think it is. I think everybody deserves to say what they want to say, but I think when you start shoving it down somebody's throat, that's where you're wrong.
Okay, I can agree with
Why would it be any
that.
more acceptable for Christians to impose their morality than it would be for Muslims to impose Sharia law?
I think that's a perspective thing because I know a lot of people, especially in the West, see the Sharia law and they don't agree with it. And I personally don't. I think it's a lot of the laws that they have against women are pretty bad. But it's the same thing from their point of view. They look over here and see that it's fine to be gay, and I know it's against their religion. So I think it's just the way that people look at it.
You can't force religion onto somebody. Religion is a faith. Religion is a belief. It's not something that you can just be like, oh, this is my opinion, so now it's yours.
If the Bible holds men more accountable than women, how are religious conservatives any better than the feminists who always blame men?
I don't believe they are. I believe it's one and the same.
So the Bible does hold man to a higher standard because he's supposed to be the protector, the defender of the home. Women, feminism, it's kind of like they took over part of the man's role of being the protector of the house instead of being the caretaker and the one that also helps show the man, hey, did you see this? Did you see that?
If religious conservatives view freedom in the highest regard, why aren't they willing to accept those who want to step outside their traditional roles?
Traditional roles, you mean biblical roles? If you were to step outside of the biblical role, it ultimately shows a false pattern of what God has intended for man.
Because I think the viewpoint that conservatives view freedom in the highest regard is false. I think that's what they like to paint as their narrative, but I think in reality...
Most real estate investors think they have to choose between cash flow and appreciation. What if I told you that you can have both cash flow appreciation?
You see the fact that you guys don't truly want freedom. You want people to be underneath a set of rules as opposed to doing what they feel comfortable with and what they...
Okay, so with that logic, take religion out of it, right? So if you want to shame religion and say, oh, well, it's all about putting everybody under a set of rules. Okay, well then explain how you run a household and you take religion out of it. If you take religion out of it, then how do you run a household? You're still gonna run it the same way. You're gonna have a set of rules. You're gonna have a set of guidelines and boundaries for each person in the household. And for people that aren't a part of the household, you have rules for people that you invite over to your house too. So if that has nothing to do with religion, if religion is about that, then how do you explain the rules and guidelines that you have for your own household regarding the people that stay there versus the people that are just guests? What's the difference there? If you want people to take off their shoes before they come in the house, that's a rule. And in order for them to be under your household, they have to abide by those rules. It's the same thing with religious practices. There's a certain set of rules and guidelines, but then at the same time, we get given grace because we're not perfect. The same way you would give a guest or your children grace because they're not perfect. Yeah, they understand the rules, but sometimes they may slip up from time to time. You see what I'm saying? But you remind them of what the rules are, and then y'all figure out a way to work it out and keep it moving. So your logic is flawed, bro.
They feel is right.
What is the difference in the shame that comes from a feminist versus the shame that comes from a religious conservative? Aren't they both attempts to control and force their ways upon others?
Well, one's out of love, the other one's out of selfishness. You see somebody drowning in sin, you try to help that person. You know what I mean?
That is
Another
true.
one is about, shaming somebody for being themselves instead of what they do.
What's the difference between feminists labeling anything they don't like as misogyny versus religious conservatives labeling anything they don't like as degeneracy?
Okay, well, I think that there is a difference in, sometimes people just use it as a cop-out method where they're like, oh, I don't like this, so I'm going to label it as something bad. But I also think that when it comes to misogyny, there is a much more underlying, it's there and people are just calling it out, versus when I think degenerates, I think people are just looking for a reason to hate on younger people and somebody doing something different than themselves.
Aren't they both coming from a self-righteous ideology?
100%. I'm not saying I support it. I'm just saying that's what I think.
So why does shame exist in a multicultural country of religious freedom?
I mean, I would say first, even though we live in a multi-religion country where you have a ton of different viewpoints, I would say we still, at least in the United States of America, live in a predominantly Christian society to where Christian views are still, to this day, what's considered norm. Obviously, we have a ton of religions, a ton of diversity, but Christianity still being the primary religion.
But most of those other religions agree on the same
thing. But in
thing.
terms of why we still have shame, I would say that you have hypocrites. You have hypocrites in all religion, and you have, even going down to atheists, non-believers, you have hypocrites that their viewpoint is more important than the viewpoints of their religion. And even if we get to a historical standpoint, there's a ton of hypocrisy in almost all religions that still exist.
What's the difference between the shame that comes from a feminist versus the shame that comes from a religious conservative? Aren't they both attempts to control and force their ways upon others?
I think they are, but I think that there's a difference in...
Here we go.
Actually, there's not much of a difference. I think there could be a difference in how it's approached. A difference in how it's approached, but I also think that when it comes to religion, most people tend to shove the way that you act, and it's the same with feminism, don't get me wrong, but me personally, I think that one is more valid than the other. I think feminism, in a sense, is just respecting us as equal, where I think religion is putting other people down.
Because I feel like conservatives feel like a type of kind of way, and they think that is the way life is only supposed to be.
Well, what's the difference in the shame that comes from a feminist versus the shame that comes from a religious conservative? Aren't they both attempts to control and force their ways upon others?
They are.
So isn't the battle between feminists and conservatives just another religious war?
I mean, if you word it like that, I guess, yes.
I mean, they're competing ideologies, right?
I agree.
They both are beliefs, and so I understand that side, but I do think that religion is more just how somebody views, oh God, the higher power, one would say. But I think that the other is more of how somebody views self. Like, if I'm not being respected by a man, how am I supposed to, like, you know, do everything that I can do just the same as a man could?
What is the purpose of the separation of church and state?
I think it's to keep religious viewpoints from becoming law. I think, it's one thing to have your beliefs and have your practices and go by that. But I think, I, in terms of the theme of the questions, that should not be what is considered normal. And I think that the reason why we separate church and state is because your religious views should not be forced upon everyone to live as their norm.
Do you think we would become a better society if people learned to be more sensitive or more thick-skinned?
Definitely more thick-skinned. I feel like now people are more sensitive. You can't say how you feel anymore. You can't have your own opinion. Everybody wants to. You have to agree with me. We have to be equal, and it's not the way. Like, bro, we're different. Everybody. First of all, this is America.
So by your logic, ma'am, if you think that people need to have thicker skin, then by that logic alone, you agree with shaming. Because if shaming is a way to get people to see their own potential so they can improve, well, then you're telling them that they don't need to be sensitive about the information that they're told. So if you're telling them that they need to stop being sensitive, that statement right there is a form of shaming people that can't take criticism. See what I'm saying? So, like, even with this, earlier you said you were against shaming, but now it seems like with this statement right here, you're in favor of it because you're telling people, oh, well, you need to suck it up, and you need to have thicker skin and just take the criticism and do the change and keep it moving. That's what it sounds like you're saying. So within the same interview, you say one thing, but now you're flipping it and saying the opposite. Good job, It's Complicated. You got her with that one.
This is a place full of different looking people from all over the world. That's just what it's all about. That's one. So then we should also understand that with all this difference going on, that we all have different opinions, and we need to have the strength to be like, all right, I hear you. Let's agree to disagree.
I think we need to be more sensitive, but not in a way that things irk and bug us, more so in a way that we're aware and we aren't judgmental. We're more open to things. Maybe we don't need to push things in schools or whatever, but people need to see the world and be receptive of it. Otherwise,
that means you agree with shaming, sir.
And negative upbringings, and it's just going to go right back down to hating each other, which shouldn't happen.
Do you think there would be less shame if there was less diversity? And if so, why is diversity so heavily pushed?
Yeah, I would say there'd definitely be less shame if there was less diversity, just because less diversity just means that you have people that are similar, people that think similar, and with that, you're going to have less shame because, you guys think alike, you have similarities. I think with diversity, you definitely are going to naturally have more shame because you have different viewpoints, and when you got different viewpoints, people are going to disagree. So I think the art of shame itself isn't necessarily bad, because when you have opposing views, you're going to have people that have issues with the other side. But I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing. I think the bad thing is the way and when we talk about shame, I think there's a difference between disagreeing and shaming someone. I don't think there's anything wrong with disagreeing. I think there is something wrong with shame.
How can we be promoting diversity and expect unity at the same time?
That's deep. I feel like, from what I've growing up, my book tells me, my Bible tells me, a house divided against itself cannot stand. So I don't think that pushing diversity is really going to help anything. But I do also feel that if people did come to a common ground on God and who they're going to serve and just make that choice, and if we all came together on that, then things would be a little more peaceful. But there's a lot of differences going on, so we're going to always fight against each other. I think it's always going to be like this.
All right, okay, man. Shout out to It's Complicated for coming through with a very fire video called Does Shaming Work? Okay, so my response to this one, or just my general thoughts on it, This was a very great topic. Very, very, very great topic. Had a lot of different perspectives on here, but I think the bigger root of it is, does shaming really work? So if we focus just solely on that question, that's what the basis of the entire video was about. So in terms of shaming, it depends on what you're being shamed for and the context of which the shaming occurs. I'll give you an example. So like with us guys growing up, we roast each other, we clown each other all the time. That's a form of shaming. We do it as a way to keep each other on our toes, you know, highlight each other's flaws and stuff like that. But at the same time, we take it in stride because we understand that in certain situations, the thing you're getting shamed for is something that you can't change, but we make fun of it, you know, just to, you know, we just crack jokes at each other. That's how we bond with one another. You know what I mean? We clown each other. Oh, you got a big head. Da 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 da. Oh, you're fat. What? Yada yada yada. Right? We roast each other as a way of bonding. You know what I mean? It keeps us on our toes. We like to crack jokes. You know, because guys have a hard life as it is, so we have to figure out some way to make light of our issues and our flaws and our shortcomings. So, but when it comes to shaming, as far as like, let's say students in a classroom with a teacher, well, if the students are misbehaving and doing stupid things or always disrupting the class, at some point there's going to have to be a degree of shame to be able to establish order and boundaries. Like, let's say if a kid is constantly acting up and disrupting the flow of the lessons and stuff like that, you may have the teacher call that kid up and tell him to go stand in the corner, and then all the kids laugh at him. You see what I'm saying? That's a form of shaming. You see? So if the kid understands that, hey, if I keep behaving this way, that there's going to be negative consequences, well, then you got some kids that'll take that. They'll internalize that feeling of embarrassment, and they say, you know what? Yeah, it's probably better if I don't act out and misbehave because I don't want to have to go through that again. And then it gets them to analyze their behavior and change it. You see what I'm saying? So it's like shaming works in a number of different ways because it reinforces an idea of having decorum and carrying yourself with proper and decent conduct. You see what I'm saying? I'll give you another example. So with the black population, I'm not gonna say community, but with the black population, it's like a trendy thing for the men to walk around and sag their pants, right? Well, within that group, it's widely accepted for the most part. But then you have different members of that group that will call that out, and they do shame that and say, hey, man, you shouldn't be walking around with your pants hanging down like that because of the type of message that it sends. You see what I'm saying? So if you compare how black people used to be way back in the day to the black people we have now, it's night and day. The black people before, they actually had a level of decency and a level of conduct with how they carried themselves. They dressed well. They made sure that their hair was on point. They made sure that they looked presentable despite all of the negativity that was going on around them. And they held themselves in a very high esteem when society and the world around them was seemingly against them. But then you take that and compare it to now, well, most people would say that back then was better than how it is now because you got a bunch of godlessness, lawlessness, you got sin everywhere, and then people are getting fed up with it. You go on social media, everything is some sort of degeneracy or something sexual being thrown at you. And, you know, at some point, it may seem like it's entertaining and fun in the beginning, but at a certain point, you start to get worn out from seeing so much. And then it's like it takes a mental toll on you and it takes a spiritual toll on you too. So to say that religion and things shouldn't play a part in how we conduct ourselves, that's 100% false. Because deep down on a subconscious level, you know that you're not supposed to be out here exploiting yourself and carrying yourself in a way that will affect you negatively, not only in the short term, but in the long term. But that's kind of my take on it. But overall, great video, great conversation. I love the back and forth. I love the dialogue. I love when these people are contradicting themselves. I like to call out the cap when I hear it.
Stop the cap.
But overall, great video, man. And you know, that's pretty much my reaction, man. So if you like the video, go ahead and give this video a like, share with a couple of your friends. Make sure you follow me on all my social media sites. And if you got something specific, go ahead and drop it in that comment section, man. It's your boy AnonymousBased. Peace.